Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Fireside Chat. I'm your host, Carneros, and with me we have two exciting guests today. We have the creative director of EVE Online, CCP Berger, and we have the CEO of CCP Hellmar. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hey. So 2020, it's been quite a year.
Oh, it's been a year.
Amen.
Yeah. It's actually great to have a moment to end it here with all our favorite people.
Yeah, absolutely. Working from home.
Working from home. Yeah. I have to say the contrast between 19 and 20 is considerable. Where we did the world tour, I think each of the 9 stops of the world tour had either one of us, Berger. And we were both in some of them, getting to meet all these EVE players in person all around the world, and then 2020 being locked at home for a whole year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a notable change.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge change, and especially with I really feed off meeting the community and going out, and the world tour was absolutely fantastic. It was so great to kind of get to people's homes and get to see kind of how the culture spills into the game, the difference between Amsterdam and Toronto. It's so great, and I can't wait until we get to travel again. I haven't stepped in a plane at all this year, which is brand new for me. I welcome change, but I'm ready.
Yeah, people's homes. We literally were in a person's home for a period of time when we were in Finland.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was wow. We were naked in people's homes in Finland, actually.
Yes, naked in EVE players' homes in Finland. That was 2019. Well, even though 2020 has not been a great year for the world, it's been kind of a kick-ass year for EVE.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have talked about it. I mean, obviously we have, for the most part, throughout CCP, been working from home since March, and I think we made the notice in one day to send everyone at home with their computers and chairs and whatnot, and we've practically been there since.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
But it went remarkably smoothly, actually. We managed to set up in a couple of days and get going, and actually resulting in 2020 being one of the best years in memory. I mean, it's been a heck of a year in EVE.
Yes. In many ways feels like many years. We started by rolling out the quadrants. That was a new thing, going from 2 expansions to 4 quadrants. And that's been rolling throughout the year, almost like tick-tock, without any hitches. It's easy to kind of, we take it for granted that it just worked, but it really did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've also been focusing a lot on kind of the message in the World Tour was a lot about, helping our new pros to get into the game, helping our new players to get playing and going. And the message was a lot about putting focus on that. And I think 2020 has definitely been the year of kind of experiments. We've done a lot of interesting experiments this year on everywhere from activation and all the way through into the funnel. But I think also what 2019 taught us is that you can't just it's not a pendulum swing. You can't just go and put everyone on new players and everyone on the other side. You have to find that balance, and I think quadrants came in really strong on that, in keeping the meta fresh, keeping the game alive.
Yeah,
keep on iterating, keep on testing. Things that work, let's allow them to stick around. I mean, just take a look at the needlejack filaments, which started out as a Christmas event, and now it's one of my favorite things to do in EVE. Just needlejack myself somewhere into a corner of space and try to get home through diplomatic ways.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest kind of insights from me from the World Tour, was really when you meet players in their home territory, you kind of get a sense that EVE is full of these micro communities.
Yeah.
Like meeting players in Australia, from meeting them in Fanfest@home or in Vegas or all throughout when we're in London, etc. It's sort of really these micro community, and the concerns are very different in different places.
Yeah.
Like in Finland, it was all about more chaos and wormholes. In Australia, it was a lot around cloaky camping, I have to say. And it was all these kind of different things coming up. And it gave me a real insight into that when we think of like globalizing EVE Online, we're very much focused on localization, just translating the game, as we've now done into like Russian, German, French, Korean, and now Japanese as of earlier this month. And but there's a lot more to this kind of culturalization of there really are just many different cultures playing EVE Online.
Absolutely.
And to give people a sense, like Berger was saying, we've been investing a lot in getting the message out this year. We're actually just collecting it up for a lot of sort of year-end stats. We were doing our annual global staff meeting inside CCP just this morning, where we're going over a lot of the achievement for the year. And this year we have 3.5 billion ad impressions. So throughout this year, we have 3.5 billion ad impressions, where somebody saw an ad on the internet, which obviously is not a great amount of commitment, but we were able to turn that into 1.9 million people logging into EVE Online for the first time this year. And that is a higher number than if I take the last 3 years and add them all up. So for this 1 year, we got more than triple last year, year before, and the year that I had. So it's been a huge year for new players, or for humans on planet Earth, thinking this is the year I start playing EVE Online.
That's a really impressive number, by the way.
It is, and I've been comparing notes with other gaming companies, and this is a respectable number. One of the hypotheses we were testing with this is, okay, EVE is turning 17. It's going to turn 18 next year. Is it still relevant? And based on these numbers, absolutely so. I think we have a lot of opportunity to execute on this vision of EVE Online going on forever. If we can, in a year, get close to 2 million people to make it through our funnel and into the game.
Absolutely. And I mean, of course, you know, the global lockdown, I mean, it worked in our favor, but I think there's also a lot, like we've been talking a lot about the friendship machine and the EVE effect and all of these things. Kind of, we've been working a lot on the early experience, fixing a lot of stupid, stopping a lot of bleeding, you know, hardening our top funnel, making registration actually function properly.
Yeah.
And these kind of all came together definitely at the beginning of the global lockdown. So that played a part, but you know, after we've kind of analyzed afterwards, it's also just, you know, all these things come together. The need of people, like, you know, fighting loneliness and wanting to connect with others. It just all seemed to kind of come together there. So
yes, it definitely played a part. I think we could sort of attribute about 15 to 20% of the first logins over the year coming from that. But there's also been, I mean, obviously a lot of people coming back to EVE as you are locked away at home. Yeah. And it's certainly been a kind of a moment of being touched by how, like, EVE has helped people kind of deal with loneliness, being locked away. I think we have all had to deal with it in some way or another. And at CCP, it's a lot of Teams meetings.
Yeah.
About EVE Online, but it feels like we have contributed a little bit in fighting the isolation effect by EVE Online and EVE players. It's mostly EVE players, obviously, which are doing it. We're not really providing anything other than the platform for people to have a meaningful connection with others, where killing is just another means of communication. But we're also concretely been helping, Bergur. You really took up the torch with this Project Discovery and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we have this wonderful tool called Project Discovery, and we kind of reached out to the scientists earlier, like at the beginning of the crisis, kind of beginning mid-February, to see if there was something we could do and we could help out with. And in record times, we managed to get in touch with Andrea in northern Italy. He was at the heart of the crisis in Italy, and he got us some data from his garage laboratory. The university he works at actually set up a laboratory in his garage. It's pretty wild. And we got some initial data from COVID, and players have been doing some really important analysis on the effectiveness of antibodies on the virus, and we're seeing incredible results and really meaningful results, especially now with the vaccines coming out. We apparently play a vital role in making sure that these vaccines function and how they function. So, yeah, doing something important.
Okay, I wasn't fully aware that we were also playing a part in the vaccines. So, what is it that we're doing in there? Flow
cytometry. Now my wife is probably screaming from the living room because she's a biologist and she hates that I can't pronounce this, but it's one of these sciencey names that has letters that shouldn't sit next to each other.
Yeah. Flow cytometry.
Look at that.
Thank you, that guy.
Yeah.
I heard it so many times on the Project Discovery stream. And if I couldn't pronounce it by now, then I can't pronounce it at all, ever.
Yeah, but there was another thing we did, which I don't think, well, we talked about it in Iceland, but not stream-wide, but we got a call from a small healthcare tech company in Iceland who had been asked by the government to make an app for COVID. So a part of our web team spent every waking hour in the early phase of the pandemic to help them finalize the app, which basically helps the nurses in Iceland manage the outpatients for COVID. So we made a little app where everyone who is in isolation or has COVID and is staying at home, they now have an app to check in with the nurses. This used to be done with paper and pencils and calling out, and it's very labor intensive. But with a company called Sidekick Health, we were able to help on that front. Yep. And I know that has given a lot of people at CCP great purpose in all these times that we're doing small things to help, both with Project Discovery and the human connection that it provides, or this Sidekick app we helped contribute to. Maybe not what you think when you go into making computer games, but that you're teaching the world how to do flow cytogrammetry.
Yeah, it's actually hilarious. Talking to the scientists both here and also with the Exoplanet project and the Human Protein Atlas. We actually had a lot of influence on how they built their tools and how they set up their tools to do these analysis. I guess gamification can help science in more ways than just kind of get data. So
yeah, it was kind of funny hearing. I mean, often we think we're moving slow with product development at CCP, but by the science community standards, we're at light speed.
Yeah. We shipped it from the first conversation until we shipped it. It was I think it was 3.5 months or 3 months, and then some staging period. And the initial, plan from the scientists were like, oh yes, yeah. Sadly, we didn't talk about this like 4 years ago because that's kind of that was their estimate of it'd probably take something upwards of that. But if you put smart people in a room and give them a challenge, usually you get great things.
Yeah, and it probably has to do with something when you're making a computer game. It's less at stake, so you can, you can move a bit faster.
Yeah,
even though, I mean, with EVE Online, there's a lot at stake. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
But we also had, other great things coming out in kind of we have this beautiful metric called R, which is activation.
Activation, retention, referral, and revenue.
R.
Yeah, YAR, the pirate metrics.
Yeah. And I mean, EVE Echoes came out this year as well, and we relaunched in China as well, which has also been hugely great in kind of getting EVE on the map and making EVE more relevant. We saw like great reactivation from Echoes. A lot of players came back. They tried out Echoes and got that kind of, it turned on the EVE spark again, and so we've seen a lot of old friends come back to the game and kind of add to the action that's been going on, and also with EVE China, that's been a really wonderful project. And
it was kind of monumental to get that going. So we are now working with our third publisher in China with NetEase, and NetEase was always kind of a dream partner for us. NetEase has been running MMOs since '97. NetEase and CCP are shockingly founded, I think, the same month. They have a little bigger market to play with in China than we have in Iceland, but and have done well for themselves. But it was kind of a meeting of the minds when we met them and laid down the tracks for all this back in 2017. And they have had hundreds of people deconstructing together with us all the elements of EVE and reassembling into EVE Echoes. Done a phenomenal job, extremely faithful to EVE experience while still improving some of the UX, which I think we can take a lot of inspiration from for EVE, and are doing that already.
It's been a wild, it's been fantastic to get this massive audit on the game. It's basically been, it was super scary at the beginning, and the first iteration were almost like 1-to-1, just EVE Online on mobile, and not the best game I've tried. The EVE UI and UX is not great when you're on a tiny screen. But it's been absolutely fantastic working with them, and we've learned a lot. They learn a lot from us, we learn a lot from them, and I talk with them almost every week, and we share learnings and we share experiences, and I think they play a vital part in how good 2020 has been, and a lot of our decisions, we've managed to vet them against their stuff, what they've done. So really great stuff.
Mm-hmm. And getting EVE China PC off the ground again. This is the first time EVE Online is running as a free-to-play game in China. It was mandatory subscription before, and about a third of the 1.9 million people that logged into EVE for the first time were people logging into Serenity for the first time. So that certainly played a huge part in that. And it is an absolute marvel that we got a license from the Chinese government to publish EVE Online. Not many have been granted in the past 3 years. So we feel quite fortunate that we're one of the rare few games which have been given permission to publish in China in this time, and now we're up and running on both servers again. It's double the EVE for the world. So Rick, do we have any questions from the stream we could maybe tackle?
Yes, 27 or so, but we won't jump into all of them at once.
28.
Maybe one at a time here for a second. some of them are pretty specific, like when will we get Edencom capital ships or Sisters of Eve capital ships? I know it's not quite what you guys are prepared to address, but or can we need low-sec needlejack filaments. That one wasn't even a question. They paid to put in a comment. Love it, though. Shows the engagement. With the changes to high-sec and null-sec, are there any positive changes coming soon to wormholes? Do you guys know about stuff like that?
I mean, we're constantly evaluating. We're constantly looking at the whole game and seeing how we can improve it. I mean, there's definitely a lot of ideas around, but I don't wanna promise anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there other languages that you're considering for localization? That was a question.
Yes, absolutely. We've now done Korean and Japanese, and the Japanese was something we really wanted to get done because we went into Japan in 2012 and frankly just didn't do a great job. Was one of our first localization. We were inexperienced in doing these kind of things, and it just was not something we're proud of. So coming back to that and doing a much better job was really important to us. And we're now back up and running, and we're already with higher numbers of Japanese players than we have ever been, much higher than the initial release of even Japan in 2012. So that was a matter of kind of honor and pride for us to do that properly. And what we have learned throughout all this is that to be successful in a territory is a lot more than just translation. There's a lot of nuance to call to action, how you market the game and position the game in different territories. We have, for example, seen it's a very distinct. There is very distinct difference both in Korea and Japan and China with regards to user interface complexity.
Yeah,
they love it. The more complex, the better. We see the reverse in the West. People want simpler, more accessible user interface experiences. But in Japan and Korea and China, the elements which we are often maybe not like a lot of EVE Online was made 20 years ago, so like it is it is a little bit like Windows 3.1 and playing and being a bit Excel-y. But these are wonderful properties in Japan and Korea. They love it. The more, the better. The more options, the more complexity, the more reading material, the more depth, the more mastery of extreme nuances.
One of the things that, sorry.
Yeah, no.
What impressed me about the Japanese relaunch was how CCP organized the established Japanese players to welcome the new players in and help them get, find a corp, help them find a purpose and inspirational stories to that was great. I hope we do that on everyone.
Yeah, so we have an extremely tenacious core Japanese player base that has been keeping us to task for many, many years on getting this done properly. So one of the key elements in doing that was to harness all their feedback on all the nuances, quality of the translation, quality of the supporting material, quality of the rollout, how we leverage the various different aspects of their unique opportunities for promotion in each territory. How you roll out something like EVE Online in Japan is very different. How you roll it out even in Korea versus China, and certainly different than Russia or Germany or France or America for that matter. So that is one of the things we've learned. It's just one size does not fit all, and there's also amazing amount of richness that comes from it. We have seen elements in Japan which are very, I would say, sci-fi to us. Like there is one site that does like beauty competitions for EVA avatars, and they call it Beauty PvP.
Beauty Hunter.
Yeah, Beauty Hunter. Well, it was. I don't speak Japanese, but it was explained to me as like a PvP in beauty, and then various categories, and it's like a lot of work is put into it, and people are really competing. And like when you see stuff like that all in Japanese, it's like it feels very sci-fi.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
and I mean the Japanese Twitch streams are just.
We're losing Berger.
Losing you, Berger. We're losing you.
Yeah.
You work on getting him back while I ask the next question.
Yeah.
Would you be providing some details on the new collaboration with Spirosoft? I have no idea if that's allowed.
Okay, that's a very detailed question.
I know. Turned my head.
Yeah.
You can
I wonder how people know that. So our team in London is working with Spirosoft, and we have announced that they're working on a third-person sci-fi shooter. So that is what Spirosoft is working with us on.
Nice. Here's a totally different one. Has the pandemic altered the design of the new CCP office space? Do employees tend to go to the office, or is it more home-based?
So we have 3 offices around the world, and one in Shanghai, one in London, and one in Reykjavik. And COVID and the lockdowns have hit those offices very differently. So we were, what should I say, fortunate that we got kind of a preview through our Shanghai office. Shanghai starts to kind of lock down sort of late January. So we got a really clear sense for what was about to come. So we had the opportunity to prepare for London and Reykjavik. But China has obviously taken a very different approach than the rest of the world. They locked down extremely hard. I don't think really anyone has an appreciation for it unless you have people on the ground. It was no joke. And as a consequence, they kind of nipped it in the butt very quickly. So our Shanghai team was back at work in kind of late March as Iceland and London were getting locked down. So that was kind of also a preview of what's to come, because in the Shanghai team just really wanted to get back to the office. And apartments in Shanghai are not very big. So working from home, living in Shanghai is not like just a great option. You don't really have any space to have a proper setup. So people were just clamoring to get back to work just to have proper sort of working conditions, and also for the social factor. Then if you move over to Iceland, then Iceland, which is obviously very tiny, did a great job in the first wave. First wave was over kind of in May, and then Iceland was virus-free for about 3 months. And again, everyone just rushed to the office. There was our new amazing offices in Reykjavik called Gróska. Everyone was just like, I don't know, like kissing the floor and the parquet and hugging each other. And it was like a great time for 2 months. Then Iceland couldn't let go of its addiction to tourism, and COVID came again. And then during the second wave, you could see it. I could particularly see it with Bergur, who was the most people person I know, and it was not a good look for Bergur to be locked at home again. So I think once this is all over with at some point next year, I think we will, in Shanghai and Reykjavik, very much be in offices like we were before. I think there is going to be kind of different type of flexibility in people being at home for periods of time or things like that. But it's hard to predict what it is. We certainly just invested in the flexibility of everyone has double setup. You just have 2 work computers. One is at home and one is at work. So we have flexibility for anything. What we'll do in London might be something different. Like the commute time in London is a major factor. There's no commute in Iceland. That doesn't really matter. And Icelanders think it's commute, but it's, believe me, it's not commute.
It's not.
Yeah. If you have any sense for what Americans call commute, for example, what Icelanders call commute is not commute.
Well, I drive across a mountain to get to work, so I would like to say that I commute.
Yes, yeah, that would be a commute, but not really a long one even.
No, not really, not compared to the Americans. I mean, I drive 35 kilometers, and there's a real risk of getting stuck if it's wintry and with a lot of snow. But lengthwise,
no. But we might do something different in London, I think, due to that. I don't know exactly what it is. We'll just see. I've also we've just set up for maximum flexibility and not really fully deciding exactly what we're going to do with us, because it's there's no rush in deciding it. We'll just know what we're dealing with once it's through. But we have seen this pendulum action. It's like people just really want to be together in an office if they given the chance. Both Iceland and Shanghai have both moved that way.
Yeah, I definitely miss 3-dimensional people. Like 10, 12 hours of 2-dimensional people every day gets tired pretty quickly. But I think on kind of, working and designing Eve and actually like doing Eve online, what the pandemic has, there's a lot of great things that have happened during this work from home time. I mean, this calls for way more clarity, like, because you're not in the room with people, like people are missing conversation. So we've had to really invest in making sure that, clarity and making, everyone is rowing in the same direction. We've also just found like, there's a lot of small little like great things that have happened. Hellmar has a weekly AMA in the office, like on Teams, and I have a weekly talk show where we talk about random things in EVE Online, everywhere from like, big changes coming in and down to like, how this module works, and we get like specialists in the company to talk. And so I think there's a lot of those things that will continue, and we've probably learned more in this year on kind of what makes us tick and what makes us work, and than we've done like in all my other 10 years at CCP.
And I can tell you one thing that will remain is Berger's love of Miro. I have never seen anyone like, he's like a fish to water when it comes to Miro. Like as soon as Berger found Miro, it was like
yeah, it's a virtual whiteboard thing that I can draw in using my iPad. It's wonderful. Maybe I need to do like a live stream sometimes where I take people through the dark nitty-gritties of my drawings and Miro.
I've already scheduled. I have now already scheduled.
Oh, Christmas Day.
Slow TV, Berger and Miro, moving boxes around.
That was CCP Flea Mix there for a moment, guys. Great to see you on there. There's a question from Klotzy. Thank you, because I miss EVE player meetups, and he's asking, will there be a FanFest 2021? I don't know.
So there will not be a FanFest 2021. We just decided at some point this year that we're better served just to have clarity, and when you have no clarity, you just have to make it up. So we just said there are not going to be no kind of world tour or FanFest event for next year, but by 2022 we'll be coming back strong. So we'll get back on the road and get the Harpa warmed up again, 2022. And then, of course, 2023, EVE Online turns 20 years old, and my God, there will be a party for that in Iceland.
It would be crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy with a question says, where will I get my 20 years of playing EVE in-game badge? So yeah, we have to start thinking about that.
Yes, we have to make another monument. We did one for the 10-year anniversary, and that has parts of it have stood the test of time, but not all parts of it. So we have to learn from that and do something new, do something next level.
Can we do something in space, Hellmar?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Nothing says Eve as doing something in space.
Yeah.
Is that a new slogan?
We should call Elon Musk or somebody. He must be able to help us.
Yeah, that's like, let's try that. If that doesn't work, we could probably figure out how to get stuff into space.
Yes, we definitely should. We did that whole hamster thing with a balloon. No, it was a rifter. It wasn't a hamster.
It was a rifter.
It was a rifter. What was it with a hamster? There was a hamster.
I'm not sure if we should be talking about that on a live stream.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, okay. Scratch that.
Did not hear that.
Don't make me mute you.
Oh no, guys. All right. Okay. Any possibility of an early update on what's going on with the Rorqual and moon changes? We're going to skip all those, right? We can't do those questions right now. Oh, there was a lore question I thought was a lot of fun. Are there any plans to release lore or stories on the Triglavians in the old fiction portal style? Do you remember the old fiction portal?
Yeah. I am a big fan of the fiction portal, and I think I'm always really sad of the lack of love that is gotten throughout the years. We have something on the drawing table, a little bit too early to talk about it, but I would love if you could revitalize the fiction portal, possibly do something more kind of community driven around that, something to celebrate, play in the world.
Burger is spacing out.
Capture those things.
And while Bergur finds his internet again, I can maybe expand. So I would say overall, everything about the IP, whether it is the backstory, the different lower elements, whether it's the Empires of Eve or whatever it is, there is now more work at CCP in sort of collecting and distilling all that together. We are spending more time. Well, we have done quite a bit. I mean, like we have the kind of the source book we did at some point, which is really good. And we're doing more of these kind of things in preparation for doing a lot more with the IP. So, I mean, you've seen elements like Echoes. Echoes is obviously maybe more based on just concretely inline the game, but it's obviously also taking place in the IP, even if it's a parallel universe and whatnot, and with different races, and it will evolve differently. But it's very important to kind of distill and make it what is it really that makes Eve Eve. So we are investing more time in doing that. So elements like the fiction portal play a part in those kind of things.
There's a question here about ray tracing. Any chance we're going to get that in our tech?
So ray tracing is not a big priority for us. We are more extending the platform reach. You saw the announcement on the native Mac client.
Yes.
So we are more going broad right now rather than deep. But we are also, as part of the IP work, me and Bergur actually spent a bit of time on that, on just really distilling. There is a certain type of look and feeling to Eve, which is which is very distinct, and it is entirely not realistic. Eve is a very sort of hyper-real version of space. The way we handle the colors, the way the metal highlights are, the way the various Fresnel effects on the shading language. There's a certain language of imagery in Eve. And we want to start more by enhancing that rather than maybe resort to, not sure I called ray tracing that. It's not really an overkill, but if you don't fully wield the look, you can destroy the look with ray tracing.
Oh.
Because ray tracing, well, I mean, there are various aspects to it. There's a lot how you handle the materials, etc., etc. But if you don't really have an extremely precise point of view on the look you're achieving, then ray tracing can put you more in just looking a lot like just reality. And when it comes to space, there are obviously aspects of space which are not very ray tracing kind of like ray tracing in space. Like in space, there's not much light bounce. You have one strong light source. The objects are basically in a vacuum. There's some bounce intra-object and between objects, etc. So to get bang for the buck from ray tracing, you really have to reason those things through. And you can do all that just with classical rasterization. You don't really need ray tracing for it. So we're more focused on this, going broad. We spent a lot of time with NetEase on this. If you look at echoes on mobile device, it's extremely faithful to Eve. It is frankly staggering how much it looks like Eve on a mobile device. And that has taken an inordinate amount of time in deconstructing the Eve shader, which has like 40 layers of various aspects of rendering the look, and we got the NetEase shader down to like 7 layers by really just focusing on what really makes the difference and getting that right. So we're more like in this mode of like going broad with platforms, Mac, mobile, etc., then harden the look as part of the IP. How would you make Eve look on TV, for example, is, well, you just don't throw it all into Maya and just press render. You get a very different look. But what is the next level look of Eve in a medium like that? And ray tracing is not really the answer. It can play a part, but it's more about these elements.
Nice. Okay, there's a question about CSM summits and in the context of a global pandemic. I'm assuming it's all remote, but will it still be a full week of sessions with meeting minutes for the public? Thank you, Rain Chocolate, for that.
Are you back, Bedford?
Am I back?
You're like partially back, like 75%.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I mean, we haven't really made. I'm not sure if we made a call on the CSM session, but I mean, there are some meetings, and I definitely miss having the guy having the CSM members around. Usually, the CSM week is it's a frantic, wild week with a lot of late nights and great talks. And there's a lot of really valuable insights that comes from these conversations. We've been migrating more to, of course, online meetings, and that's been going really well. But it's just different meeting people in person. You just get so much more depth and things in the meetings, but then prepare afterwards. Like you go kind of a little bit wilder sometimes, and broader. So yeah, really miss having because pool everything.
So now I'm gonna jump in. Well,
and there it goes.
It's kind of
Berger comes back. Like Berger is saying, I mean, the CSM meetings have been going from strength to strength to strength for every year, and I've been attending more of them in recent times, and I've been kind of shocked to the level of depth of insight we're able to get from the CSM. Some CSM members have gained through playing EVE Online an element of mastery of communication, reasoning with complexity, abstractly communicate about EVE. Some CSM members are like staggeringly impressive pieces of humanity when it comes to dealing with the topics that EVE really trains you on. And it's immensely beneficial to us to have that resource available. Some of the most kind of depth you get to in talking about EVE is with a mixture of CCP employees and CSM members locked in our old meeting room at Grandagarður and really going deep on it. Like when you're into how the 7 deadly sins play into the motivations of why people wage war in EVE Online and all those things. It is the stuff that dreams are made of. Like having the privilege of being in the room and that is discussed. Nothing really like gets to that level. You can do it on video, but there is just a feeling you get when everyone is packed into that room. There are like 40 people. Everyone is an expert in their field, and people with decades of experience either making games or playing them online. It is like I said, it's the stuff that dreams are made of. And obviously now with Iceland having 5-day quarantine, adding that to the crazy schedule when people are taking days off from work to go to Iceland to get into that room to have those moments is just not realistic. So, but as soon as we're allowed to do that again, which hopefully is at some point next year, I think we will be rushing to doing that again. In the meantime, there's more online stuff and all those things. I think the minutes, I personally don't love the minutes. I think the minutes are an extremely uninspired version of what I experience when I'm in a CSM meeting. I've always been more for like testimonials, people on videos, try to capture it differently than just kind of a sanitized court secretary version of CSM minutes. I know they've risen to a status within the community because that's the only thing that the community really gets to consume. But I've been a fan of doing something more lively than the CSM minutes. I've been a big proponent of just sort of getting a hot take from people walking out of the room and having their own personal experience on video. It's a way more human way to experience what goes on rather than going through this immense process of typing up all these minutes, sanitizing them for all the various disclosure jungle that we have created for ourselves, factoring in all the EVE politics on top of it. It's just, yeah. But I know the minutes are important. I'm not saying I'm canceling the minutes. I just think there's just a lot more. There's so much more to a CSM meeting than these meeting minutes represent.
Absolutely.
You have one fan question here asking you if by any chance you are wearing the Morel Spectaculum glasses from the New Eden store. I assume that.
No.
No.
I did not know we had glasses.
We do indeed, and they're very classy. You'd like them.
Okay. Well, I need some of that. Very good. Do you know anyone? Okay.
Oh, I have my connections.
And I.
Wow, there's a lot of questions here.
I'm going to look this up. I should.
Morel Spectaculum, sir, just in case you missed that number.
Yeah, I think we all have a glasses advertisement block in our head. Like, I at least don't see them anymore.
Are there any plans? Okay, they wouldn't tell us, but we'll just ask it anyway. Are there any plans to allow EdenCon players the chance to reclaim push-fed systems back into Empire control?
Wait. I cannot stare into a coffee. That makes the internet mad. So let me stare deeply into my camera.
I know what you're talking about. That was funny.
Yeah. So I would say it's these kind of questions, like it ruins the magic if people think that it's just like people like me and Bergur that make some decisions out of like what this happens and all that. It is way more nuanced than that. We don't want to be in control. Like the more EVE Online is just a beast of madness that just goes on and on and on, fueled by all of our emotions, the better. So asking about like what's going to happen to these systems or EdenCon or Triclavians, it's just it just doesn't work like that. It's who knows? It just I mean it's these things have a way more complicated process of coming into being than just like me and Bergur like being able to answer that. It just like as soon as you go into that, then it just becomes like it just ruins the magic. The answer is just we just don't really know.
Yeah, and it's actually an interesting topic on losing control, because I really love that topic. Like, and this is something we've been pushing for, not really fully knowing, how the NPCs will behave, not knowing, what systems the Triclavians will take over, just giving the control to players, giving the control to the universe. And I would, I really want to push that even further. How can we like slowly just give, make EVE completely alive?
So it was one of the most wonderful moments in the creation of EVE, is that a process created EVE Online. It was not humans. We created the steps in the process, but EVE, the current solar system map of EVE, was done through sort of particle accretion, like from the Big Bang. It wasn't entirely the Big Bang simulation. This was done in 1999 with Pentium 3s. So we only had some, but there was a process of that. And we had elements to how it would function, just like where there's water, there is grass, and there are trees. Like it was a process like that. It was a very natural process. And then we go into the world and we know nothing about it. Like everywhere you go in EVE Online is a first. And we did like a play test on this. We generated the world, go in there, and it was like a version of EVE nobody has seen. We didn't release that version. Then before we released EVE Online, we just pressed generate and we generated the world, and then we released it. And every person that went into a solar system, nobody had gone there. Like no CCP employee had gone to those systems. So we were just reading blogs from people traveling New Eden, writing about the systems, describing their contents, like the planets, and then we were taking a peek and all that. We knew nothing. And just to give you a sense, there is a system in EVE Online which is called Brundakur, and that has an extremely specific meaning in Icelandic, which I won't repeat the English.
I was on the bleep button right now.
But you can, I mean, there are Icelandic people that can help you with it. Brundakur, it's a system in EVE. Like Icelandic people would never name something that, but all the names, all these things, like we dissected human languages, we broke them down, reassembled them, all of the names of the corporations, the solar systems, all these things were generated by a computer. I wouldn't call it artificial intelligence. It would be shaming what people are doing now in the field of AI, but it was a process of creation by nature, and thus, like, unfortunately, we weren't smart enough to do kind of procedural regeneration, where the process would constantly renew the world. So now, like, me and Bergur spent a lot of time on this, like he's saying, how do we lose control? How can we give full control to the universe and the players, where we just have these things where we just can't answer these questions? I don't really know what Irin is going to do. It's kind of out of control. And we genuinely didn't know what was going to happen to all these systems. It was like everyone at CCP were sitting in suspense. Oh my God, is this really going to happen? Are we going to cut the world in half? Yep, I guess so.
Okay, Kwaski asks very eloquently, in each of your eyes, what is Eve's greatest aspect?
Bergur, you start.
What is your favorite child?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really love the friendship machine. I think that is something absolutely, the relationships that are built when I meet players on events that, you know, have gotten married or had kids, like that always brings a tear to my eye. Like Vegas a couple of years ago, I met a guy that met his wife through playing Eve. They have a kid now. The kid is playing Eve, and it's just it's completely out of our hands. This is losing control. This is giving control to players, and I think that is by far my favorite part. That is what makes me tick. I love the fact that, you know, Eve is so much about player emotions. It's so much about, you know, it kind of exaggerates the capital sins, and, you know, it's wars in Eve are not about me taking over that territory. It's about damn that guy. Yeah, so that's my favorite part of Eve.
So I've thought a lot about this, and I run like a blog series inside CCP where I write a blog every week. It's kind of mad, and I've been doing something called CCP Magic, I call it, which is kind of trying to sort of really figure out what Eve is, and there's an aspect of Eve to this question, what am I the proudest of in it, is that, so computer games are different than any other medium of entertainment ever created. Like, if you look at medium of entertainment, it's like telling a story, writing a book, having a theater, etc., etc., goes on. So computer games do something that none of that does, which is you make a decision. So when you are reading a book, you're not making a decision. You're following a narrative that's already been mapped out. If you're making theater, you're watching theater, not making a decision, unless it is kind of a participatory theater, etc. But in a computer game, you make a decision. Will I do this or will I do that? And then you bear the consequences. And making a decision, dealing with the consequences, is the loop of how people learn. Like, this is the human learning loop. It is, I make a decision, it succeeds or fails, I course correct. You learn how to walk like this, you learn how to read. This is the human learning loop. It's also the learning loop for machine learning. Machine learning works on, makes a stable patterns, find outliers, break it, another one. So the process of learning is made through decisions and dealing with the consequences. So if you look at any games that have been made, I would argue that no game gives you the foundation to make bigger decisions and deal with more consequences. So you as an alliance leader in EVE Online can make pretty big calls about future of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people. And that is pretty unique. So it's unique for games to make decisions to begin with. I would argue with reasonable certainty that no game gives you as big of a stage to make fuck-ups or masterstrokes. And that, I believe, pretty fundamentally, and I see that more and more, the more I spend time with EVE Online and EVE players, is that this accelerated learning loop creates experience and knowledge at a faster rate than reality does. And to my comments about the CSM before, I think EVE Online has taken pretty good material from those humans and turned them into super versions of themselves. And they all say it. Like if you sit with CSM members for a dinner conversation, all their stories are like that. Yeah, I used to have a small team at my company. Then everyone came to me to do conflict management because I was really good at it, because I play a lot of EVE Online. Now I have a big team. And now my career has gone from there to there. And they all say, because of EVE Online. And it isn't some made up like CEO bullshit. This is just uniformly what comes out. And this is like what I'm the proudest of, is that EVE Online is a ecosystem of mostly torture for accelerated human development.
Wow.
Definitely.
Okay. I'm not sure where to go from here. Do you want to show any slides, or no need?
No, where do we go from here? That is a good question. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
After all that, where do we then go from here? And that is a pretty big question. And my answer to that always ends up being, it's like, we just need more people to experience that. It's just, this should not be a privilege for the few million people that have really genuinely played EVE Online. Like there are tens of millions of people that have logged into EVE Online, but there is low single digit people that have really, really played it to any standard that makes a difference. And I think it's on us here at CCP to find the way to both get more people to experience this, and thus make the decisions that the movers and shakers of EVE Online are making, involving even more people, and thus being bigger decisions. I think that is on us to figure that out. And Bergur and I spent a lot of time on how do we onboard people into this magic source that has been created. And again, it isn't really us by now. I mean, the EVE Online is such a product of crowdsourced, like, I mean, we were 27-year-old teenagers in Iceland, like banging together something. I mean, we were pretty good, but we were not this smart. I can attest for that. I sat in the room when we came up with this. It was legit talent, but nobody is this smart. It really is a creation of millions of people and a few thousand people that have really made a difference in EVE, that have created this amazing thing.
Do you want me to bring out some of those stats?
Get more people in there is the task.
Yeah, that is also, that feeds into our ultimate goal, which is, making EVE last forever. We want EVE to outlive us all. That's the mantra that we go by every day, and it's in every single slideshow that we show. That is always the higher goal of what we're doing. And currently we are the janitors, making sure that the pipes are flowing and the thing is working. But we just owe it to EVE to get more people in, because more players equals more content, which equals more fun, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, I have been very inspired by the effect that Queen's Gambit has had. So chess is a game where you make decisions and suffer the consequences. Like chess is as close to a computer game you can get without having a computer. And when you're a kid in Iceland, everyone plays chess in Iceland, but like it's in the water. And but like playing chess is super nerdy. Like even in Iceland, where everyone knows how to play chess, like only nerds like myself actually play chess for any real thing. And I'm not good at chess at all. And then out comes Queen's Gambit, which is so extremely faithful to chess and extremely good TV at the same time. And you know, like all the chess positions he is playing, they're all real ones, inspired by really famous games. I mean, you can play AI online now that play like her because her style is so distinct, etc., etc. And it has like all chess websites, chess sets, they're selling like hotcakes. And now everyone in the world is playing chess. And it's not like some accessible version of chess, it's just chess. How we find that moment for EVE Online, where if you can get such a dark, hardcore topic like playing chess to be entering the mainstream by such excellent execution of making people care about it, we need to find something about EVE like that, where we're taking its purest essence and somehow giving people a taste of what it really feels like playing EVE Online, like really, really playing it. And I mean, you're one of the few people, Rick, that actually know what it is. Like, I do not really know that feeling. Like, I just can't play EVE like that because when you sat in the sausage room of making it, it's just I see nothing but the things I've left to do in EVE. Like, it's just it is somewhat painful sometimes to play EVE. Of like, it's like, oh Jesus, we haven't fixed that. Oh damn! I just end up making lists of elements and sending emails, angry emails to Bergur. But there are people like yourself that really know what it is, and it is magical. And how can we deliver that onto the world, like they did in Queen's Gambit for chess?
Wow. Do you want another question? Do you view the increasing amount of destruction as part of the healthiness of the EVE economy?
Yeah, I mean, destruction is such a key element of the beauty of EVE. Like, you know, things are created and things are destroyed, and that's what makes the world tick. And I think there is, you know, we know that when, you know, when we have more destruction, there's more life, there's more, you know, vibrance. You know, you start to kind of really go into the, you know, mistakes are made and you know, emotions are sparked. So I think I'm a big fan of destruction.
Yeah, I would connect destruction with what we were talking about before about making a decision. So destruction is usually the downside of a bad decision. Like don't fly what you can't afford to lose is basically like don't gamble your e-fortune away by not taking care of how you manage your assets and your cash flow. And that is a form of decision making. So when people are losing things, they're experiencing pain, and pain is the motivator that teaches you how. Like, pain is ultimately the brain learning. That is what it is. I'm not sure. I mean, machine learning algorithm experiences pain when its pattern fails, but that is what happens to humans, and you feel it. Like, you know, like I've lost ships in EVE Online, and I've made terrible decisions as a CEO, and I've made terrible decisions as an EVE player. It is like, I don't know if it stings more. like there was this one moment where I lost like a ship in EVE. I borrowed from a friend, and like it was so like embarrassing and painful and whatnot. It taught me a lot about myself and about life and about Eve, and I think that is the destruction we want. We want pain and suffering from making a bad decision. That helps you grow and learn as a person. So often you look at like the economy, the aggregate state and all that, and the problem is if people have too many assets, too much security, they're not pushed to making decisions under pressure. If you're not pushed to make decisions under pressure, you're not really exercising your full potential. You're just really playing it safe. And it is from that exposure that growth lies. So I see if things are not being destroyed in EVE Online, we are keeping the game too safe and cozy. And that does not deliver on the vision of the EVE effect of EVE Online giving you life skills and friends. And the friendships, just to feed on that. The reason why EVE Online is a friendship maker is because you have to rely on your friends to have your back if you stumble and fall. And the stumbling and falling is a condition for the friendship to have value. Otherwise, I mean, you could just be playing Candy Crush with your friends. So the magic is in the destruction, frankly.
I was 2 years into EVE before I had a destruction event significant enough to really drive that home to me. And I was 3 years in EVE before I appreciated what the true value of the previous loss and how much that improved the whole game. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I've told the story before. It's on the keynote for the 10-year anniversary FanFest. Like when this happened to me, when I genuinely lost a ship for the first time. And I remember just standing there watching my CRT monitor coming off the bathroom, having not checked the autopilot path, and seeing the pod. And just like, I mean, I had seen the pod many times, like I was using it as an asset to test the graphics engine and things like that, but seeing the pod and what it represented and the shame and the failure and the disappointment and all that. And then I stand there like I'm shaking with like all those emotions. And then I think like, wait a minute, I'm the CTO. I could just make another spaceship. And then like an ocean wave of a second wave of disappointment, thinking that I would cheat in my own game. And I was like standing there on the floor, cold sweats. Why does this feel so wrong? Like it's like pressing two buttons and I have the ship again and I just give it back to my friend who doesn't even know my name. And it was just like, what a lesson in something. And I'm very extremely grateful that I had that lesson in like mid-September 2003, because that started the journey of really understanding what it is. And you really have to experience that to know. There's just, if you haven't had cold silhouette or PvP shakes or whatever, like the PvP shakes, like this is just common language in EVE. Like, just think of the magic that it is. It's pretty monumental.
Any hints on what we can expect next year?
Berger, that's more you.
Well, I mean, we of course will continue the journey that we've been on embracing new players and making the game, you know, a more welcoming thing for our new pros. We're now kind of, you know, we've been reformulating the teams a little bit and shaking things up, and there are some pretty big fruits that we need to, or pretty big pink elephants that we need to take a look at and we need to slay. And I'm really excited. I'm really hyped. The team is like, the morale in the Reykjavik studio has you know never been better. It's people are really jiving. There's a lot of great things going on. So we're gonna see some pretty big changes.
Yeah, it's actually what Berger was saying. We do a monthly survey we call the CCP Pulse, where we ask questions like, would you recommend a friend to come and work at CCP? Are you happy at work, etc.? And actually, the Pulse survey now from December is the highest we've ever seen, all KPIs in 2 years. Yep. So it's I think that is the best predictor of things to come. We generally do our best moments when people are happy and inspired. And Berger has been knee deep in the engine room of EVE Online, making a lot of like fundamental changes to how we like execute the delivery of value into EVE, and that is going to have a monumental impact. I mean, 2020 has already seen the benefit of it. I think if you just count the number of fast releases, quadrant releases, shake up to the economy, like I had my little cheat sheet of like things that people were complaining about from the World Tour. I think we've fixed everything but cloaky camping. I think it's only cloaky camping that's left, and at some point we'll get to that with some inspired solution other than just kind of hand waving it, because it's actually a pretty deep topic when you really dig into it. It's it has to do with emotional asymmetry in the actor counter domain, which is it certainly took me a while to understand why it's such a hot topic. So I predict we're going to see some of the most inspired work on EVE Online just using the morale in the Reykjavik office as a predictor.
Absolutely.
Funny you mention it, because there are probably 10 out of the currently 90 questions in the queue have to do with the cloaky camping. Then there's more than one also about, will we ever do a motion picture or a TV series about EVE Online also?
I'm just going to say yes. Yes, I'm going to say yes, we will. It is not easy to do well. Like to do something like Queen's Gambit, which is good TV and so authentic to the topic, is no small feat. It is not easy to do, and we have tested out many things, and you kind of feel it. Is it on a trajectory to be authentic or not? Is it on a trajectory to be authentic and good TV? It's easy to do authentic for like a few connoisseurs and nobody else cares. It's easy to do something mainstream, which is not authentic, but getting both, that is what is needed. And we're just, we're not quite there nailing it, but we will.
Absolutely.
Tips on directing.
Looking at the past year, what was your favorite or most surprising player interaction moment?
There was not a lot of player interaction. We were all locked at home.
I'll give you mine, and that was the first. The first Pappy dropped in the NPC section of Delve, and how the Imperium responded to it with a barrage of ships for hours and hours and hours and hours to grind it down. With that, I don't know. That was amazing for me.
Yeah, I think Narja falling was a big surprise to me. I was super surprised when I got pinged that this might happen, and hugely surprised when it actually fell. But for me personally, like from a very personal stance, I've been playing a lot of wormholes in 2020. I don't know if it's the isolation or something, but I really got into wormholes this year. I've been flying them alone and dying a lot, getting stuck a lot. I refuse to use like public bookmarks. I'm just trying to find my way back home, and it's great. I love it. I get lost for hours and hours and days, and there's something really poetic about it.
Yeah, so if we're talking more like those kind of events, not where you have met any player or talked to them, I would probably bring up Chappie's birthday. I read that article and watched the video somebody made, and I was just like crying my eyes out. It was
absolutely. I'd forgotten that was this year. This has been a long year. Whew.
It's been a long year. Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of questions. Not getting past it. DX12 question, too narrow. High quality graphics, blah, blah, blah. Are we likely to see a rough roadmap for development in the future? Give them your thoughts on that.
So I think we have now successfully killed the roadmaps, and whether we bring them back again, I don't really think so. I think it's just generally better delivering value that is good, rather than creating a moment where people are waiting for computer game developers to deliver code to them. But there is a need for something to look forward to. The roadmap has the effect that you are now looking forward to something happening. And I think there are more ways we can achieve that, which are more related to events, changes, these kind of Triglavian story arcs, like which Bergur has been like banging the drums on ever since he took over as creative director, of making that what you look forward to is more these kind of evolutions of the world rather than kind of features of a computer game. And we generally do a poor job of that mentally, even ourselves. What are features on a computer game? What are product releases in the universe? I think the Alliance tournament, for example, is a thing that people look forward to. This kind of sport event and things like that. So I am personally more excited about finding ways of making like a calendar of elements. Like you look forward to Christmas, and that's not because like God is delivering a patch to reality. It's it's for something like much more human. So finding that to hit the spot of like something to look forward to, and too often we've just made up roadmaps as that, and then those put us in constraints that are not healthy, because good ideas 3 months ago are just often not good ideas 3 months later.
Yeah, and I think also what we've learned with the quadrants is that actually releasing more frequently and allowing ourselves to, announce it and then release it a few days later is just way more powerful. It also it allows us to work more iteratively and test things out, try them. If they work, they can stay. If they don't, we can pull them back. And it's just given us way more confidence in how we work and what we do.
Yeah, questions about other games with the Eve IP possibly being made in London. Is there anything you want to say about that?
So, I mean, we're definitely making more games in the Eve IP. Echoes is a concrete example of that. Right now, what we have disclosed on London is that we are making a sci-fi shooter in London. And that's the word on that still. But I mean, life is long. We've I think we have shown an absolute inability to give up on making more Eve games.
Amen.
Yeah.
In the past,
and I mean the IP is just so rich. There are so many games that just there are just so many things that the universe begs for, and there are so many opportunities. And I think the world, what's been great over the last 2 years is that the interest in Eve at CCP is just really high, and people appreciate the IP, and they really like, it has so much to offer. Without promising anything, I'm nowhere done.
Okay, we're about 90 minutes in here. Impose-a-lot asks, in the past, CCP Hellmar has mentioned how a lot of things in the game just came to be randomly without a more rigorous design behind it, such as the geography of the universe. I wouldn't put it quite randomly, but
yeah.
Which aspects of the game do you think have changed the most, and which ones you would like to redesign if given the chance? High level.
Okay, so it's I'm going to answer with more like a principle, and there are elements to Eve, both originally and what came to follow, where we have made systems which are not a natural part of the world, and they're like an aberration. And I'm going to take an old example. So the way the factory slots in NPC stations work are not good because you are doing economic activity that is completely safe. So the way manufacturing should be done is exposed in the world. If your factories were in player made structures, which were not eternal, like NPC stations, then you have exposed your manufacturing line. And that takes the system from an abstraction into an aspect of the world. So instead of engaging in this very important activity of making things inside super safe cocoons of NPC stations, it is now exposed in the world, and then the rules of reality apply. Then you have to defend them, you have to protect your logistics, you have to make a lot of decisions, good or bad. So the fact that we have NPC factory slots inside NPC stations is a breakage of the principle that everything is in play. And in general, NPC stations are an aberration. They're in a way a disgrace. They are unfinished business in Eve, and I know why. We just couldn't deal with them. We just had to do it like that. But they don't fit the principles of Eve because they are not. They're not. What is it called? When things are not permanent, impermanence. I wrote a long blog about this. Wasn't it impermanence?
Impermanence.
Yeah, impermanence is a pretty big fundamental topic, and like entropy in the universe overall, etc. Like it's a big religious philosophical topic, and all the things in Eve Online which are not subject to impermanence are aberrations that need to be corrected. The factory slots on NPC stations are obvious. We should just fix that. NPC stations themselves are, again, that type of a problem. Those are probably harder to fix. The fact that we had this asset safety element, another break of a principle. Then there are systems in Eve which have turned into these sort of database abstractions, where again they don't exist in the world and are not subject to the rules of the world. I think the way the sovereignty system is like, it's a borderline, that kind of a case. I mean, there are elements which are in the world, but it's also, it's a bit too much like a system. The the sovereignty system of like, if you can defend the gate, you own the system, was the best one. Like, that is the system where you need to trust people towards the gate so that you own the system. And the fact that we made this very sort of elaborate mechanical systems to make rules and regulations about how you claim and own territory in EVE has merit, and I'm not saying it is not a good thing, but the mastery is doing them while it is still subject to the rules of the universe, where we're not making special rules, like, again, NPC stations. The fact that you can't destroy an NPC station is a problem. Concretely manifests in endless inventory that is super safe, factory slots on NPC stations which are subject to no rules of reality, etc. Maybe more philosophical than people are looking for, but that's me.
Okay, here's a Limey Thumb asks, EVE is a living world. Is there a way to bring new players up to speed with the current story so that they can become engaged from the start? Some assumptions built into that question. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of plays really nicely into what Hellmar is saying, or was saying, on actually bringing more reality to the game, like bringing more of the narrative into the front and center. And then it's something that I've talked a lot about. I talked a lot about this on the World Tour. This idea of, like, in the past, it was kind of, the PvE was kind of sitting outside and everything else was kind of in the game. But how do we anchor the systems in EVE with the reality of EVE? And I think for the new players, for instance, I think it's really important that you kind of get the sense and the taste of the universe. Like that's the first impression. You need to get that awe, that excitement, and that is not just a content team going in and building a unrailed experience. It's also down to fixing bad UI and UX. It's also about making better narrative grounding in the things that you are doing, making progression feel rewarding and making you feel like you have a purpose in the grander thing. And how can you on like minute 15 feel like you have a space, and kind of shift the dialogue from like catching up with others and more to like how can I carve my space or find my niche that will serve the world, give the world more purpose, and how can I then shape it?
Some of these are long questions. I don't want to throw them to you without looking at them first. I'll just read it to you. Maglor Shea asks, I completely agree with Hellmar's earlier point about aesthetics help make the cluster feel alive. The level of player engagement in the story, both in the project, both in your major project and the Triglavian expansion, invasion, and the lore team's smaller elements suggest a large subset of players who do value narrative and the, in some cases, fascinating terrain EVE offers for those stories. In the light of that level of engagement, is there any desire to make the EVE narrative, make it feel narratively as well as mechanically alive? It's kind of a tapestry instead of a storyline. It's hard to explain. It's so broad, and there's so many writers on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely want to bring the narrative more into the center of the game. I think even if you're not a hard out, lore player or anything like that, there's this having a reason that's grounded in the narrative is so important to everything that we do. Like, hey, why is this thing here? Oh, because of ABC. Like, alpha clones came because the Sisters of Eve did a project discovery project where they were looking at drifters, and from that they created an alpha clone. You have like a narrative grounding of that reason, and it just, even if you don't know that story, it just gives more richness, it just gives more depth to the whole thing. I think for me personally, like we've been doing a lot of great experiments with NPCs. We've been doing a lot of great experiments with, adding in new and using Triglavians and Drifters to test out new things and so on and so forth. But I'm really looking forward to kind of going back to the basics a little bit and giving the current empires more love. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there and a lot of exciting things we could do to really expand the core of the game and kind of these core building blocks of the universe to breathe more life into it. And if we've been on a path of experiments over the last few years, like, let's now go on a path of mastery and hardening the thing that we have.
Some of these questions are funny. Any plans for observatories or other exploration support focused structures? Okay, I just want to scan without even having to undock. These crack me up. Answer that question.
So even that, scan without undocking, I would say no, because that is creating a context where you're not exposing yourself to bad decisions. If you can just do everything from safety, you miss out on this element of making a bad decision.
But there's another thing in there as well, which is one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about over the last year is this, what is sci-fi? What is the promise of sci-fi? And how can we fulfill the promise of sci-fi? And I think exploration is a big one there. And I think there's a lot of, things in exploration we're kind of missing out. The game has been, even if the game has been mostly discovered, quote unquote, there's still a lot of things you can see and you can go out and you can go and explore. And I think there's a great need and great desire for people to explore. And it just fits so well into sci-fi. So I think that is something that we should push harder and allow people to do.
Yeah, and there's also another part of exploration which I think we sometimes step over. That is that everything you do is your own personal exploration. I can go and explore Rome, even if Rome, wasn't built in a day and everyone has seen it. I have never seen it. I can go and explore it. I can see the Colosseum. And it's my discovery, even if I wasn't finding it. It's many people have seen it. And now with Eve, I do a lot of these things of just like going to Jira and just being there and like seeing what's going on and like seeing the Katya Sai monument and like it's just I like that's my discovery.
Yeah.
Like in a game I played some part in making, but it feels like going to Rome to me. Like I sometimes like, okay, theater renovation, I'm now there, just there. All these ships, what are all these people doing? Where are they going? Oh, look at that one, that's very big. Look at the untouched process. Why are they bouncing around? That's super awkward. Let's fix that. There's so much exploration that can be done now because they're just very deep, meaningful, historic things in Eve.
Yeah.
Like the graveyard, like
yes,
who has that? Like who makes this? Like we could have never made that. There's just real like tough stuff that exists because it was created by people that cared and that's it's like. That's a form of exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. And me and my 9-year-old son, he loves hanging outside Jira, and we go and we hunt for bios from people, and we basically just right-click people and see if they have something written in their bio. And majority of people have like bookmarks or stuff they shouldn't really be pasting in their bio, but there's always that one that has really crafted something beautiful. And just telling the stories to my 9-year-old is like, I mean, these are some great adventures that you find in these.
Don't look at mine. When will CCP implement an in-game election system for CSM? 1 vote per actual player, regardless of number of accounts. No dependencies on the archaic forums.
I think many other people than us struggle with ancient election systems. I'm not sure.
Too soon.
I guess we can do better, but I don't think it's our biggest challenge. Well, it certainly is a challenge, but highest priority right now. I think there are many other things to fix.
A little bit of ice water in that question. Yeah, I experienced it. One guy says, thank you, Sapporo Jones. I don't really have a question, but someone needs to be cool and say thank you for shaking the game up from time to time. It may not always be popular, but it's got to be done. Thank you.
If we're gonna have it last forever, like we need to shake it. And if we want it to be meaningful, then it needs to be meaningful. And some of these changes we've been doing throughout the year, I mean, they've been difficult, and we've had to hold our breaths and things like that. But it is, I promise you, it will end up in a way better EVE Online.
And it's also stagnation is death.
Stagnation is death. Absolutely.
Yeah. EVE Online's vibrancy is not measured by how many people are playing it per se. It is really measured by what's really happening, and is that really worthwhile? Is somebody having their blood racing, making a bad decision or a good decision, or impacting thousands of people? That is what the game is about. And if the game is getting too stagnant, predictable, boring, nobody cares, there are no emotions flying, the worst thing is apathy. I would rather people hating on me for stuff rather than just not caring. And again, not on me. It's I know there was moments last year when Bergur and I were standing in front of everyone, kind of taking the hits for it. But I mean, somebody has to be the meat shield for the dev team so they can do the work. It's I think often people romanticize it as it is on one person doing things, but there are over 300 people that work at CCP. Me and Bergur alone do very little. It's been decades since I wrote any code. But stagnation is the enemy.
Absolutely.
And I would rather go down dying trying rather than just kind of an Icelandic element. If you die in war, you go to heaven. If you die in your bed, you are just dead.
Okay, here's a different angle of a question. Will there be now more focus on more peaceful parts of the game, like exploration and industry structures, as we have had many things focused on combat and PvP? Thanks.
I think we're gonna be looking at the game, in a wider aspect. We're always looking at multiple things at any given moment, and I think it's if there is one thing that we've learned is that let's try not to rush things. Let's try to do things properly. Let's try to understand them kind of on a little bit of a deeper layer than just kind of do the thing that bubbles to the top. And 2021 is going to be a lot about that.
The Capsuleer with the call sign Screaming PC asks, what about being able to stay logged in 24/7 with no keyboard input, in space or in station? No other MMO or even streaming service lets you stay logged in, wasting bandwidth.
I don't think there's any limitation about staying logged on. No, I think you can. In any case, there's nothing really preventing that. EVE is built for modems. We built client-server architecture around 33.6 baud modems back in 2001. So it uses very little bandwidth. So staying connected and doing nothing is perfectly fine, I think. And it should just work. So knock yourself out.
Okay.
But staying connected and actually doing stuff is even more fun. Try that.
Amen. KillerCo1978 asks, I've been playing this game for 17 and a half years, and all this time you've never changed this many things in the game. Didn't you change too much at once? And now a lot of players, mostly Null, are pissed at you.
Wow, what an endorsement. They've never changed that much.
I know.
Well, that I'll take that.
Is it? Do you think it's connected to everyone working from home and being more productive?
There's more.
Change coming, sir. Amen.
Well, I think what Berger was saying before is that there was an element of just kicking things in gear. Like the game was stagnant; it had to be shaken up, and there was a bit of an over kind of push to get it going, and that was kind of kicking it in gear. Now it's in motion, and it is what do they say? You can't really steer a ship that's not moving. Like the ship has to move. Like if the game is stagnant, it's now kicked in gear, it's now moving, and you can steer a moving ship. So like Berger was saying, now that we have gotten it really going again, then steering it is a different action. Now we have kicked it in gear, it's moving, and now it's more about steering. So, and that is more about kind of deeper work and going deeper into what is it really where we need to address things in the game. And that is maybe more introverted than what it was to get it going again. So it's not about necessarily the amount of change, but I believe there was just a backlog of things of just getting it in motion. Like, I mean, we've been making meaningful changes to EVE since, I don't know, a year and 2 months or something ago with the Talos releases. Like every 2 weeks, like something is changing. And I think people have generally celebrated that. They've not maybe loved all the changes, but the fact that it is changing, I think, is an actual value proposition.
Yeah, and it's also built confidence with the team in taking on bigger challenges, taking on bigger changes, taking on, staring the pink elephants, in the eyes.
It's apparent to me that people are working their asses off. There's a question from Unknown003. How do the retention numbers look this year for new players coming in compared to last year?
So they are largely the same, but that is still an achievement. When you triple the number of people you put through the funnel and you keep the same-ish rates, that is a victory. And we have done many good small improvements throughout the funnel, which have made differences. There's a gradual UI reveal, there's no voiceover in the tutorial, a lot of issues in the sign up into first login has been fixed up, where issues in the launchers, download on demand, God knows what, platform support in some weird edge cases, Windows 7 and AMD CPUs, name it. There's been a lot of those kind of fixes. And they have been able to hold the rate while we have jacked up the funnel quite a bit. But now Berger is laying down more grand plans for more meaningful changes to the actual experience that should be able to improve it while still keeping about 2 million people logging in every year.
Yeah, and I think what is important here, and what Hellmar is saying, is that when you open up before there was a lot of survivor bias in the people that came in. So people, they were Googling EVE. There was a lot more organic, acquisition going on and kind of people really trying to find EVE, versus now where we're kind of pulling people in. So people they don't have the survivor bias. So actually maintaining similar numbers while opening up is a massive achievement.
Okay, Stick613 asks a question that I've always had and never thought to ask. Dear Lord, how did CCP come up with the crazy number letter names for nullsec systems? Why not just have names like lowsec has? I've always wondered this.
Yeah, so the system names are based on the languages spoken in New Eden. So they have so each of the races and each of the languages spoken in Eve are constructed out of sort of knowledge of earthly languages. Then there was a computer algorithm that made the names. Example being Brund Akur, like we talked about at the start of this, and it's working for a working. Yeah, and so like high-sec and low-sec systems were claimed. So the language origin of whom named that system were known. So we wanted to have those have like names that make sense. And if you look at the system names, you know, if you know the languages, you know that it's a Kaldari name and a Kalenti name and a well, the Kaldari names are kind of easy to follow, like Kala Kiyota. If you have spoken to Finnish people, you know where that comes from. But the outer regions were supposed to be like unclaimed, and thus they have these designations rather than names. Just like when you name a star in the world today, they give them some obscure numerical codes. So that's how it came to be.
Okay. Will the Jove be back with new systems in the north? This is from Gun UK.
I don't know. I have no control of the Joves. We can't really elaborate at all, can we, Hellmar?
No.
That was pretty final.
Sorry, yeah.
The Joves seem to act through all these kind of subordinates. Aren't all these like drifters and like all these other sub things?
Yeah, there's some hearsay about that. I've heard some really dark and deep theories on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're a little bit like the what is it called in Lord of the Rings? The Maiar. What is it called? The beings that made Sauron and Gandalf and the Balrog and the elves.
It's the Vaya and the Maya? Something like
the Vanar, but the Maya made the elves, and the Maya is like a super thing. Like there is some tiering to them, which it's like Berkur is saying, they're again not really in our control. Like it's there have been many ideas at CCP. This I can say of like, oh, let's do a Jove expansion, and there is violent rejection to the idea always. Like there's just programmers refuse to make the code, designers refuse to design the features, artists don't want to make the spaceship. It's just it's a protest, and this is one of those things where even if me and Berkur sit down and say we were going to make a Jove expansion, which obviously would be a terrible idea, it just wouldn't happen. I can order no person at CCP to do it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't happen. And it's just hard to explain these things. It's just, I guess now's not the time then.
Ryu Takeda asks, are Trig infantry weapons gravitic in nature? They were listed as kinetic weapons, but do they use their gravity technology to throw stuff?
There's a really, really nice and deep analysis done by the ARC, and I would want to refer that document rather than me. They are way smarter than me, and they have done deeper analysis on Triglavians. So,
okay, CCP Burger is referring to the Arataka Research Consortium, ARC. So do a search on Arataka Research Consortium. We'll check that out. Amazing group.
Amazing research.
Would you be open to ending faction warfare in its current iteration, bringing a closure to that storyline that's been going on for a decade, and reinventing factional warfare as a new feature? This is a question from Old Imperial, which makes me think of Stout for some reason.
Well, I mean, my goal is always to breathe more life into the universe, to really allow the universe to evolve further, and really kind of emphasize the kind of the living nature of things that happen. All these empires, they have feelings, they have emotions, they have an agenda, and like, how can we add more life to that? How can we make it feel more like you're part of their reality? You're a guest in their space, and sometimes they go on war, sometimes it's peacetime, sometimes people push them to move, and sometimes they claim bigger ground. So ultimate goal is for us to lose control and allow the game to take control of itself, and part of that is also the living and breathing of all of our wonderful factions and empires.
Okay, folks, we're winding down now. We've been going for quite a while, and there's still 92 questions in the queue because they just keep coming in faster than we can answer them, which obviously is a good question, a good problem to have. But I do want to give folks a chance to make any other statements they might want to have, since we have them on the show, and we don't get to have them this often.
Yeah, well, it's been great doing this. I think, we've gone on for 2 hours. It's a great way to end the year. We should do this more often.
Absolutely. And I think, it's fantastic to take a step back and look at the game in a more holistic way. Like, we're always in the whirlwind of the problem that is happening right now. And having this opportunity to take a step back and talk about it in a more kind of in a way, it's always great. I'm super excited for 2021. 2020 was great. It's giving us a wonderful platform to jump off into 2021. There's going to be some, fun shakeups, big changes. Hopefully I get to get on a plane and visit some of you guys. I like crossing fingers. But if not, then I will see you hopefully on streams and things like that. So yeah, for me at least, this has been a great talk. Fantastic getting your guys' questions, and love that you don't go soft on us.
This is Eve,
Yeah.
It's not a game for softball, but thank you.
Absolutely.